Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to Let's Talk Marriage, your favorite program on GH Gospel Radio. Tonight's topic is quite interesting, and it's something that I've been meaning to discuss for a long time. I hope that many of us find it relevant and we are able to relate. But tonight will be a really good time to ask questions and share your opinions because this is a topic that really affects all of our lives, most of our life. Personally, I've suffered from issues pertaining to it. So let's dive right in. Tonight, we're talking about self esteem. We know that last week in our discussion, self esteem came up. But self esteem sometimes comes disguised as self love, self worth, self acceptance, all kinds of things. But the bottom line or the basic thing we're talking about today is self esteem. You can also call it self love. You can also call it self worth. Either of the three is great and they relate to the same thing. So I don't know, but from where I'm standing looking in, the society that I grew up in, self esteem is something that is not giving a lot of importance. And growing up, I realized that it's the basis of your very life. Everything you do is affected by your self esteem. And there's this popular saying that if you think you can, you're right. And if you think you can't, you are also right. How you think about yourself, how you see yourself affects everything that you do. And the sad thing is that you form a lot of your self esteem in childhood. The things that happened to you before you were 5 years old, they have a huge impact on your life. But the thing is that once you're going, there are ways you can learn, there are ways you can grow, there are ways you can build yourself up. So, not everybody is fortunate enough to have a good childhood, to have parents who love them and put value on them. But as they grow up, they're able to learn and change. Some people are also very stubborn. They have low self esteem issues, and instead of fixing it, they become closet monsters. They hide behind the dark to manipulate people. On the surface, they'll be smiling and loving and being a good people. But deep down, because they had to survive by not being themselves and playing people in their childhood, instead of throwing away that cloak now that they are older, they still keep it and use it just so they can manipulate people and have their way. To be honest, manipulating people is far easier than doing the right thing. Because, hey, if you're telling people all kinds of good stuff with no intention of fulfilling it, it's easy. Once you walk away, you're free. But then the person may be putting their trust in you, and so therefore they might give you some privileges that they wouldn't otherwise have. So we are saying that your self esteem, your self worth, your self love, your self acceptance is the very core of who you are and how you see this world and how you interact with everything around you. It affects your career, it affects your marriage, it affects how you see God and how you even think about God. It affects how you feel day in and day out. It's an attitude issue. And there are two extremes. Some people have low self-esteem, and that is some people are egotistic. They have a huge self-esteem. People with low self-esteem think they're nobody, they cannot do anything right, they are inferior to everybody, everybody is above them, they will not amount to anything. In essence, what we're talking about is that they have a very negative view of who they are and what they can do. And of course, for such people, they will not perform well at their job. It's difficult to love a person with low self-esteem in your marriage, because even when you are telling them you love them, even when you're doing nice things for them, they see it as they cannot trust you. They see it as they don't deserve it. So probably you take it away when you realize who they really are. They're always anxious. They're always thinking something evil is going to happen. And it makes it difficult for them to be loved in their marriage. No matter how much effort you put into the marriage, they still don't think you love them. They still are not happy. They still are not secure. And that should tell us that you cannot give somebody self esteem. You cannot give somebody self love. The word itself says self, it has to come from you. So when you have low self esteem issues, it's very painful and it affects your friendships, it affects your career, it affects your marriage, especially. You're always feeling unloved, even though you may be very loved. On the other end of the spectrum is egotistic people, people who feel they're better than everybody, they know more than anybody knows, they have to be first in everything. Everybody else has to inconvenience themselves so that they can have their convenience. And that is also unhealthy. So it's either you have low self-esteem when you see yourself as nothing, or you are egotistic, you feel bigger than everybody, you feel better than everybody. Both ends of the spectrum are not healthy. Both ends of the spectrum are not good for you. And both ends of the spectrum makes it extremely difficult for you to be married. You will be a problem to your spouse. So the best place to be is to have a healthy self-esteem. And you see, like I said, some of these topics, they are foreign to a lot of us from where I'm coming from. You can take it whichever way you want. And at the end of the day, if we don't even see it as important, how do we even cultivate a healthy self-esteem? Growing up, most of the people I interacted with, their parents did not care. They used insulting words on them. They were not supportive of them because they didn't find it to be important. When I realized that you could go have lunch with your kid in school, I was like, these people are overdoing things. Why would we be busy working and then stop to go and have lunch with your kid at school? When I realized that you have to be at your children's games all the time, I was like, that's too much. We got stuff to do. But you see, when you sit down and you think about it, helping your children realize that they are the most important thing in your life, it's healthy. It helps them build a strong sense of self. So maybe you did not have that, but at least you can help your children be better. You can help your children feel safe and secure. Because when they are safe and secure, that is when they'll do their best. That is when they would appreciate who God has made them to be. Low self esteem issues can affect your Christian walk. God will give you all the promises. You will hear all the preaching, but you will look at yourself and you'll be like, God meant it for other people and not you in particular. Because all your life you've known that you feel or you think that you're not good enough. And the saddest part of it is that because we don't see it, because many of us do not see it as important, we don't even examine ourselves to see if we fall in that category. We are not even aware that we have self-esteem issues. So maybe you didn't have a good start in life. Maybe your mother left you or your parents left you with your aunties and they traveled abroad to go make some money to come take care of you. And your auntie was stressed. She didn't give you the self love. Maybe you were a house help. You grew up in somebody else's home. Everybody had to eat before you ate and you were given scraps. You were not allowed to mix with your boss's children. As a child, there's no way that is going to make sense to you. There's no way that's going to help you be a healthy person. So there are so many scenarios. Maybe you grew up in a compound house, your parents were not around, or even when they were around, whatever they told you, 10 other people told you different. Maybe your parents loved you, they used positive words towards you, But maybe the people who lived in a compound house with you, they were always criticizing you, calling you names, saying that your head is too big or your legs are too tiny. I know somebody that their sibling used to insult them with the size of their legs, and up to today, I know it still hurts them. Yeah, those are some of the things. Yes, please, if it's you, forgive me. Yeah? It's all part of the job. Let's keep going. Yeah. And I know somebody whose house help maltreated them so much because their mother traveled a lot. Their mother was a businesswoman and she traveled a lot. So every time he was left with the house help, and the house help had this insult that they often said to him. And because of that, his whole adult life, he doesn't want to live with anybody just because somebody, some house help maltreated him in his childhood. He can't live with any house help. Even when he needs a house help, it's difficult for him. And that insult that the household used on him, he still remembers. It's been over 50 years, but he still remembers. So, this is to say that a lot of the little things that happen in childhood, we overlook them and think that they don't matter, but they have a very big impact on an adult's life. So, it's important that you scan your mind, you scan your thinking, ask yourself, how do I feel about myself? Do I have a healthy enough view of who I am? If you don't, there's nothing to be ashamed of because as a child, you don't control your world. As a child, you don't, and even as a human being, you don't control your circumstances. So things have happened to you. Now is a time. You see, somebody said that you've been parented for 18 years by your parents. And if you are like 40 years old now, you've parented yourself for longer than your parents parented you. Because your parents had you for 18 years, you've had yourself, you've been by yourself for like 22 years. So you've had more time with you than your parents had with you. It's true that the effect of your childhood is much more stronger on your life than the effect of your adulthood. It's harder to learn as an adult than it is to learn as a child. But you see, the best to have happened was for you to have had a good, healthy childhood that instilled in you some healthy sense of self and healthy self esteem, healthy sense of self-worth, healthy sense of self-acceptance and self-love. But if you didn't get that, it is not too late. And I cannot spend 30 minutes to explain everything there is to explain about a healthy self-esteem. But I would like us to just examine a few things that will point you to the fact that you might have low self esteem issues or you are egotistic, and therefore it would be beneficial for you to explore further, read further, find articles, go to YouTube, and if you have the means or if your insurance will cover, talk to a therapist. These days, insurance covers mental health. And you see, when we say mental health, we are not saying you're crazy or like your life is in danger. Some of these things are mental health issues. You can talk to a therapist about it. And that doesn't mean that it's such a serious issue. It is important, but you can go through life without addressing it. But I'm thinking, why would you want to go through life suffering and having issues when you could get help and enjoy a happier, healthier life? I don't believe we are here on this earth to suffer. I believe that in whatever situation you are in, you can find help, you can find joy, you can find peace, you can find fulfillment. But these things will only happen when you have a healthy self esteem. Last week, I read an article about this guy, and he said he's a motivational speaker and he's made a lot of money. Money is not an issue for him, but he says that he pretends a lot. He's not able to be himself around people. And he lies a lot. He manipulates people a lot. So it's like he hasn't been able to have an authentic relationship with anybody. People think he's a good guy. people think he's a nice person, but when he's alone by himself, his thoughts consume him. Some of these things stem from having self-esteem issues. For his case, it may well likely be low self-esteem issues that developed into high being egotistic, thinking is more important than anybody. And guess what? When you tell lies, when you do evil in the dark, nobody sees you, but your mind has recorded it. Your own mind will start fighting you. So even in your subconscious, you cannot be happy. Well, the Bible tells us to do the right thing. It's not because God doesn't want us to enjoy life. Oh. It's because it affects you as a person. When you do evil, you cannot be happy. People will think you're happy, but you're not. This guy has all the money, that he's still not happy. And I'm not saying that it's only evil people who are not happy. There are some very good people that because they think they are not good enough, no matter what they do, they still don't feel they've done enough. They are not able to enjoy their achievements. They are not able to enjoy their lives. They are not able to look at themselves and appreciate themselves. They do not like who they are. They do not like themselves. And I would dare to say that plastic surgery that has become so common these days, for many of them, the root cause is a lack of self-esteem. There's been many research that points to the fact that the people who do plastic surgery, most of them cannot do it just once. They'll do it 10, 20, 15, 30 times because no matter how they look, they still feel they don't look good enough. You can look anyhow and be happy. In fact, the most important thing in life is to be healthy. And if you have the perfect body, one lecture we had in school, the lecturers told us that there are factors that will make your body age, but the biggest and the one that you cannot change is age. No matter who you are, age will catch up with you. If you live to be 100 and you delay growing old and looking wrinkly and saggy and looking all losing your hair and becoming frail and bent and taking slow steps, when you see old people, advise yourself when God blesses you to be that age, you will probably look like that. Age will catch up with you. So no matter how many plastic surgeries you do, you will still age. And if you don't like your body the way it is, no matter how many times you change that body, you may still not be happy. So instead of changing your body and changing your housing, you might want to change your inside. You might want to fix the issues that have been playing in your head, the things that happened in your childhood that make you think you're not good enough, or that make you think that you should have certain things before you'll be happy. You need to be able to do a mental assessment, assess yourself. And some of these things, you can have easy tests online. You can go online and do self-esteem test or low self-esteem test. You can do all kinds of tests online. And sometimes you yourself may be having some doubts. You may be thinking, I'm not happy. I don't feel good enough. It's like those things keep coming back to you. All we are saying today is if you think you're not good enough, or if you think you're better than everybody, both of you are unhealthy. It's important that you are able to come to the realization that something is not quite right, and that if you are able to work on it and fix it, your life will be so much more healthier and your life will be so much better, and you can have a healthier existence or a healthier life. You're not created to exist. You are created to live and thrive and be happy and joyful and peaceful and find fulfillment. So, like I said earlier, I cannot use 30 minutes to explain everything in this world, but I found this article online. It's on hackspirit.com, and it was written by this nice lady. She is called Let me find her name. Where did I put her name? Yes, Maya Zhang, Zhang. Yeah, Maya Zhang. And when I read the article, I was like, hey, I struck gold. It's saying most of the things that I would like to say. So I unashamedly just copied what she was saying because she was saying exactly what I'm saying. You can go check that article out on hackspirit.com and by Maya Zhang. And it talks about some of the things that if you find yourself doing should point you to the fact that you do not have a healthy self-esteem and you might want to follow up, look into it and try to do something about it so that you'll be healthier and have a more positive existence in this life. Okay, so the first sign that you have self-esteem issues is if you find it difficult trusting others. There are some people who would proudly say, "Me, I don't trust anybody." As a human being, you can't live your life without trusting anybody. There are levels of trust, and there's basic trust that you need to have for people to be able to have a healthy relationship with them. You cannot say that I don't believe anything coming out of anybody's mind. That is anybody's mouth. That is extreme. You need some level of trust to be able to have healthy relationships. So if you find yourself always saying, I don't trust anybody, I will never trust anybody, you got issues. So that's one thing. The other thing is overcompensating in relationships. There are some people that when they are in relationships, last week we were talking about the people that when they are dating, especially the women, they'll go and cook and clean and wash and all that for their boyfriends. You're overcompensating. You're probably trying to hide something. The dating stage is not the time to be cleaning and cooking. Cleaning, cooking, washing is part of the marriage. It shouldn't start in relationships. So when you're doing all that for a man before you are married, you're doing too much. The men, some of them, they'll be buying expensive things, taking you on expensive dates, trying to impress you in many ways. Dating involves impressing the other person, but impressing the other person should not be a daily affair. It should not be an everyday thing. Once in a while, it's good to go the extra mile to impress whoever you are with. But if you find yourself doing too much in every relationship, one of my friends would say, Gemini and all. If you realize that in every relationship that you are in, you have to bend like you usually bend over backwards so that you will be loved. You have self esteem issues. When you're in a relationship, let's say friendship, courtship, marriage, whatever, and you realize that you always want to say yes to the other person because you are afraid that when you say no, they will take their love away from you. You are overcompensating. You're trying too hard. You are acting like you are afraid the other person will leave you. That should tell you you have self-esteem issues. Yeah, so the marriage counselors and the people who often say that, oh, as for women, whatever your husband says, you should say yes. You should submit all the time. You should always agree with your husband. You should never disagree with your husband. All of that, they are only encouraging you to overcompensate. As a woman, you are a healthy, full human being. There'll be times you will disagree. There'll be times you have a different opinion. There'll be times you'll be angry. You will go through all kinds of emotions because you will be faced with all kinds of situations. You can never always agree. You can never always submit. So if you find yourself always agreeing, always submitting, always saying yes, my friend, there's a problem. You have self esteem issues. Okay, Let's move on to the next thing. The next thing is perfectionism. And there's a huge difference between perfectionism and striving for excellence. The one who is a perfectionist would always want things to be the exact way that they want it. And sometimes they may not even have a reason for wanting it like that. There are some people that when you move items around in their space, they get very agitated. And some people that everything has to fit perfectly. I know somebody that whenever he has visitors and the visitors go away, he will vacuum after them because his carpet needed to have the perfect lines. And if you vacuum for him, he will still have to redo it because you probably turn the vacuum back and forth instead of turning it in one straight line. You see, when you are renting a new apartment and you walk into the room, you see how they vacuum the place really nice. You usually it's not a new apartment. Maybe they just cleaned up after the old tenant. You walk into the apartment for the first time, you get your keys, open the apartment for the first time. You see the way they vacuum the carpet. It's like they have these lines flowing in a neat place. They do that when they want the place to look excellent for marketing purposes. If you want your home to look like that all the time, it's not realistic and it's not even healthy. There are some people who cannot sleep if there's one cramp left on their floor. Of course, it's not good to be dirty. You need clean surroundings, but there's a point where it's too much. Some people have to have their closets color coded. It's a very beautiful thing. But you and I know that nobody has time sitting around to organize their clothes according to color. When we were in high school, they taught us how to do it. It was really nice. But I don't remember the last time I color coded my wardrobe. Maybe you could say I'll not call myself lazy. I just don't really care. But I wouldn't say that people who care are doing too much. But the point I'm making is that when you need things to be perfect all the time for no reason, you are being a perfectionist. You want things to be perfect just for being perfect sake. And when we contrast that with being excellent means you are making the maximum impact with whatever that you are doing. You are getting the maximum use out of it, or you are doing the best under the circumstances, like not even the very best. You are going over and above to produce something of good quality for a purpose. So the difference between perfectionism and excellence is that excellence is always for a purpose. There's purpose built into excellence. It's like you meeting a purpose in the best way possible. That's excellence. But with perfectionism, you just want to be perfect for perfect sake. You have to be perfect, and that's what it is. It doesn't matter. Even if it's raining, you have to have your things the way you want it. Even if everybody has to stop and wait for you, you're on a long journey, you have to finish whatever you are doing before you come along. It's like there's no reason for your perfectionism, or there's no reason for whatever you want accomplished, but for the fact that you want it so. So if you find yourself being a perfectionist, that should raise some flags for you that your self esteem may not be healthy and that you are using that perfectionism thing to cover some things. And we should also notice that you didn't make yourself a perfectionist. You grew up to become a perfectionist because of things that have happened in your life. But when you notice that this is who you've become, it's important that you acknowledge it, you investigate it further, and you try to get some help so that your life will be easier, better, and healthier. Trust me, there's no perfectionist who is happy. Maybe there are some, I haven't met them, but we'll leave it at that. So let's go look at the next thing that would help you identify that you may be having self-esteem issues or self-worth issues or self-love issues. And the next thing is having high levels of self-criticism. There are a lot of people that have negative self-talk. I think we all have negative self-talk sometimes, once in a while, once in a blue moon. But there are some people, they never say good things about themselves. Sometimes when you're talking to them, even sometimes when you give them a compliment, oh, I love your dress, they'll be like, oh, this old dress, it's not even looking good. It has a rip in the bottom and it doesn't even move well. It's like, even when you give them a compliment, they find a way to turn it into a criticism. And they don't think they are good enough. They always have a negative voice inside. Sometimes nobody may notice but themselves. So if you are somebody who is always talking negative things about yourself to yourself, nobody hears you, but you say it to yourself. And because of that, you will not want to be in the open for anybody to see. You often are hiding behind the shadows, trying to make yourself small because you're afraid that when people see the real you, they may not like you because you're not good enough. You're always criticizing yourself. And sometimes it even ends up in being overly critical of other people because the things you do to yourself, you do to other people. Sometimes you end up being overly critical of other people. Small thing you want to criticize, everything you want to criticize, everything you want to look for the negative thing in it. So, like we said before, with a perfectionist, maybe 98% of whatever they are looking at is good, but they'll find a 2% to work on, to insist that I need to make this 2% work. And for somebody who is overly critical of themselves, if they make 98% on a test, they will not appreciate the 98 that they made. They will sit down and cry about the 2% and criticize themselves for not being able to make that 2%. So if you realize that you have negative self-talk, you talk negatively of yourself, that should signal to you that you may have self-esteem issues. And it also sometimes play out as it's like you think that you cannot make it in life, right? So if you realize that you are highly critical of yourself, let's say that you made a mistake 20 years ago. Every time you remember that mistake, it feels as if you made it today. You're not able to be like, I made a mistake, I admit it, I am sorry, but everybody makes mistakes. I've learned from it and I'm moving on. People who are highly critical of themselves, they don't do that. If it's been 20 years since they made that mistake, they still berate themselves. They still criticize themselves. How could I have made this mistake? And sometimes when they make some small mistake, hey, their whole day is spoiled. They dwell on that mistake. They punish themselves. They talk down on themselves. And it's sad to watch. And it's like they're always in a guilty trip. They feel guilty for so many things that they may not even have done. Something they said a long time ago, something they did. It's difficult for them to move on after they've made a mistake. If you're highly critical of yourself, if you cannot forgive yourself for your mistakes, it will be very difficult for you to forgive other people for their mistakes. And sometimes you will be overly critical of other people too, because you cannot be hard on yourself and be easy on other people. So if you're highly critical of yourself, if it's so hard for you to forgive yourself when you make a mistake, because we all often make mistakes. If you can't forgive yourself when you make a mistake, if you are so highly critical of yourself, that should point you to the fact that you may be having self-esteem issues. Your self-worth is in question. Your self-love may be lacking or low. So it's something to consider. Our next point is when you have a very high fear of rejection. Growing up, the boys in our group, or like the boys we interacted with, of course, they are men now. They used to call it POP. That is plaster of Paris mouth. We all know what a plaster of Paris is, right? When you have a fracture and then they put that cast on it. The cast is called plaster of Paris. And they said that guys who could not talk to ladies to get to know them and eventually propose to them, they had POP mouth. Like their mouths were cast in plaster of Paris. They couldn't talk. All these things are part of having self-esteem issues because you are afraid of rejection. You don't want to ask a question because if you do and you get a no, you'll be so devastated. You don't want to ask for what you want because you don't want to ask and then get a no. You don't want to open up to people. And if you are a guy, you see a lady that you like, you don't want to go talk to the lady because if the lady says, I don't want to be your boy, your girlfriend, they'll be so devastated. Or let's say you want to be part of a group, you try to be friends with somebody, and they say, no, you're not good enough for us. You will be so shattered. That's you fear rejection. So much so that whenever you go anywhere, and you are not accepted immediately, it becomes a huge issue for you. Let's face it, we are all different. And even you yourself, there are people you like and there are people you are not such a fan of. In this world, I don't joke with hating people. You have no right to hate anybody. You have no right to make anybody uncomfortable because this world is created by God and we are all supposed to be able to live freely and comfortably however we want and be safe. So you cannot hate somebody because of the choices they make. But of course, you can pick and choose who you want in your life and who you don't mess with. Hello, Mr. Biney. So nice to see you. I'll be expecting your question today. Yes, so this world God created for all of us. But there are people you want around you and people you don't mess with. Everybody you see deserves respect and deserve to be left alone. But there are people that you choose, that you like, that you want to spend time with. And it's not everybody you like who will like you back. But if you don't have healthy self-esteem, if you try to approach somebody and the person says no, your whole world will be shut down. And the funny thing is, people who fear rejection, they will not even make the attempt to be friends. I've known several guys, they're interested in a lady, the lady is interested in them, the lady is only waiting for them to say something, and they won't say anything. They'll just be walking around, beating about the bush, and then somebody else will come in and grab the lady. I've known people that it's difficult for them to make friends because they don't want to open up and talk to anybody because they are afraid they'll be rejected. And sometime in my life, some long time ago, I also found it difficult to make friends because those times I didn't have a healthy self-esteem. Yeah, sometimes you start out not having a healthy self-esteem, but by the grace of God, you can grow it, you can develop it, you can put yourself in situations where your self-esteem can be built up such that you become more confident, you become happier, you can approach people. When you like people, you're able to talk to them. If they say they don't like you, you'll be like, well, I liked you, but if you don't like me, it's fine. Let me take my time and my liking to somebody else and leave you alone because you are not God. If I don't have you in my life, I will still survive. There are many people that their husbands left them and they are crazy because they cannot imagine living their lives without their husbands. There are some people their lives left them and they committed suicide because they feel like this woman belongs to me, and if I don't have her, my life is over. Fearing rejection may make you so scared of talking to people. It's like you cannot appreciate yourself enough that you like your own company. You should like your company so much that people will see you having a nice time and try to be your friend. And you should also be able to approach people. You see, in this world, there are introverts and extroverts. Extroverts need like lots of people around them for them to be naturally happy. Maybe they have like 30, 40 friends. And even those friends, not all of them are deep friendships, but they have regular friends that they have. But introverts don't like many people. They don't like being around many people. But introverts still need and want people in their corner. So the only difference between introverts and extroverts is the extrovert has many friends, the introvert has fewer friends. But those are quality friends. The introverts friends, there may be only 5 of them, but they are quality friendships, deeper connections that fulfill their needs. The extroverts may have like 40 friends, but the relationships may not be deep. But hey, if you have that many friends, how can you be deep with all of them? It's just individual differences. So if you realize that you are so afraid of rejection, such that you won't get up to ask a question in a crowd, you won't ask for what you want, you won't take any chances, you won't try to connect with people because you're afraid of a no, you're afraid that you'll be rejected, that should tell you you may be having self esteem issues. So at this point, if you have any questions, please bring them because we are slowly inching to the end of the discussion. So start letting the questions come in. Okay, another point that may point you to the fact that you have self esteem issues is having difficulty expressing your emotions. As for you, you are flat. Whether you are happy or you are sad or you are angry, you will never express it. Everything is okay with you. That's not normal. If you have difficulty expressing your emotions, if you're angry, I'm angry. If you're happy, you're happy. If you're sad, you're sad. If you're able to validate your emotions, accept your emotion, and have emotions, if you don't have emotions, it's a problem. You're probably depressed. But in this case, we are talking about having the emotions, but being very afraid or scared to express them. You may be talking to somebody, you don't like what they are saying, but for you to tell them you don't like it, never. You will suppress it. Somebody may be offering you something, you don't want it, but you to express that you don't want it is a problem. Somebody is overstepping your boundaries and you are unhappy, for you to voice it is a problem. And it's very sad that in our society, people are encouraged to leave everything to God, to not complain, to not express how they truly feel. Sometimes it's so sad that you be in a meeting, people have opinions, they will never share. They will not express their emotions or their opinions about the subject you are discussing because they are afraid of being chastised, they are afraid of being seen in a negative light. The minute is over, the meeting is over and they walk out, they'll be calling each other. We didn't like this, we didn't do this, we didn't do this. Meanwhile, at the meeting, they won't say anything. If you're afraid to express your emotions, that should point you to the fact that you may be having self-esteem issues. Your self-worth may be in question. Your self-love may be low. Okay. So another thing that may point you to self-esteem issues is craving external validation. Hey, this one is for our Facebook people. No, it's not Facebook people. Social media people. Well, social media, it's a recent thing. Many of us, we didn't have social media growing up. Social media came to meet us. Some of us are a little advanced, eh? Okay. But the thing is, social media creates a platform that exposes external validation seekers. There are some people that when they get a new cloth, if social media doesn't see it, they will not be happy. Everything they do, it has to come on social media. And sometimes they even stage things to put on social media just for their likes. And it's not for nothing. I'll be very honest with you. When you put a post up on social media and it receives a lot of likes, it's exciting. And sometimes you put a post up, nobody cares, it can affect you. So, but you see, there's a balance to everything. The fact that it's affecting you doesn't mean it should make you sad for the whole day. That is taking it too far. And I'm using social media as an example because that is what is common right now. But if you realize that with everything that you do, if somebody doesn't come to tell you, oh, you've done well, or it looks good, you will not be happy. It's like if you realize that every time whatever you do is motivated by other people liking it and praising it, otherwise you will not be happy. That should tell you that you have self-esteem issues. Trust me. Growing up, when I was in how do they say it? JH JSHS. When I was in JSHS, I had this friend. Every time she liked something of mine, she would just criticize it in a very bad way. Oh, this is not nice, it's not good. But when I do something that she doesn't like or thinks is embarrassing, that is when she will praise it. So I realized that there's something wrong here. What am I trying to say? You cannot use other people as your compass. Your compass should be you. And you see, when you wake up in the morning and you decide to do things because you believe it is good, you believe that that is what God wants you to do, that is a healthy place for you to start. And when you do things because you believe in it and you know the benefit of it, you can keep going for a long time and you don't mind whether people like it or they don't. And that is the healthy place to be able to live out your convictions. Because guess what? We are all different. People may not like what you're doing, but if that's your assignment, if that's your calling, you should not be looking at what other people are saying or what other people are doing to make you do or not do what you're doing. If you do things only because you will get praise out of it, it's unhealthy. And that should tell you that you may be having self esteem issues, or your self love may be low, or your self worth may be in question. Because the best place to be is to live as you believe, is to live as you know God wants you to live. If you are bothered by what people say, you will never progress. Because there's a story of this guy and the son who were traveling with their donkey. It's a very popular story. And the story goes like, as they were going, there's only one donkey and the journey was long. So the man let the son sit on the donkey and he was pulling the donkey along. And then people started talking. Hey, children of today, they are so disrespectful. Look at the old father walking while this young boy who has all the energy sitting on the donkey. This is not right. So the man said, hey, boy, get down.
Mommy.
Let me sit on the donkey. Yes, Nadia.
My meeting.
Yeah, I'm in a meeting when I finish, okay? You can go talk to daddy, okay? Yes. And they're like, oh, this young boy who's strong. Look at him, all the energy. It is not good. So the man said, hey, boy, get down. Let me ride the donkey. So he got on the donkey. And then some people met him and said, hey, this man is wicked. You are with your son and you have climbed on the donkey. And this donkey is, and this your son is walking by himself. You that are old enough and strong enough, you won't walk for your son to ride a donkey. Then the son was like, and the man was like, you know what, let me get down. And then both of them were walking. And then the donkey was free. And somebody said, hey, these people are foolish. You have a donkey, both of you are walking. Why don't you have sense that both of you can even ride this donkey to go wherever you are going? Why would you have a donkey and both of you will be walking? It doesn't even make sense. You people don't have sense. So the man and the donkey and the son together got on the back of the donkey, and then they were going. Hey, somebody said, oh, these people are wicked. Two people on a donkey. Hey, you want to kill this poor donkey? Why won't you just allow this donkey to be free? Or maybe even one person should ride a donkey at a time. You know what the man did? He said, you know what? Let's leave the donkey here and go because we are tired. Everything you do, people will talk. Do what makes meaning for you. Do what works for you. Do what you believe in your heart that is the right thing to do. And do what you know God has asked you to do. If you want to rely on what people will say, you will never do the right thing and you will often be misguided. Mr. Nikwe says, how do you improve your self-worth? Honestly, that's the next place that I was going to jump into. Thank you, boss, for bringing that up. So trying to improve your self-worth, it will not take one day. It will not take one short lecture for you to improve your self-worth, but you have to start from somewhere. For me, I'll say it a million times, give your life to Christ. For me, that's what worked for me. Because it is in God that I found myself. It is in God that I found love. And when I understood the love of God for me, oh my God, it changed my life. If the creator of this universe loves you enough to die for you, to think about you, one thing that really boosts my self-confidence is the fact that I can pray and God will answer me. Me, I pray, God will answer. There's nothing greater than that God knows your name, that God knows who you are, that God cares about you. That alone will take your self-esteem from 0 to 1 million. It is the biggest ever self-esteem boost. Give your life to Christ and grow in Christ. Your relationship with God will not be built in one day. You need, after you've given your life to Christ, you need to abide in a faithful church. Not all churches are good, though. Not all churches teach the right thing. Find a good church that you can learn and grow and become better every day. Giving your life to Christ, in my world, is the single most important thing that will build your self-esteem, because God grows you. The Holy Spirit teaches you. He brings you. You see, you get to a point where you realize that even if you lose everything and you still have Jesus, you have everything. But you will not know that unless you grow. If you become a Christian and you don't grow, you will not know all the benefits that you have. And for me, one thing that really works for me is Bible study. The more you study the Bible, the more you discuss the Bible with other people, the more you learn of the promises and the things in the Bible, the more you realize how much God loves you, the more your faith is built. So don't just give your life to Christ, but grow in the Lord. Put yourself in an environment, apply yourself to the Word of God, mix it with faith, and watch your life grow. And also the things in Christianity that really helped me: understand grace, practice and understand grace. You will not understand this in one day. So go and do research. What is grace? What does it mean? Go to YouTube, start pulling videos. If you want a good place to start, listen to Pastor Joseph Prince. He teaches a lot on grace. You have to listen many, many, many times. Sometimes it will take you 1 year, 2 years. You find out. Learn forgiveness. Forgiveness is a great thing that will help you build your self-esteem. You see, if you don't have a lot of negative emotions going on in your life, you are able to connect. You are able to live an easier, healthier life. Learn what forgiveness is. We have a video on forgiveness. You can go back and watch that. You can go to YouTube, pull our videos on forgiveness. The other thing is to practice gratitude. Be grateful for who you are. Be grateful for who God has made you to be. Stop telling yourself you're not beautiful enough. Whichever way you are, you didn't create yourself. Your job is just to accept yourself the way you are. And it takes practice. So notice the little things about you, praise yourself for it, enjoy you, appreciate you just the way you are, whilst you work on yourself to be what you want to be. And even that one, you do it in a healthy way. And you see, God loves us so much. If you focus on the love of God, that would be the biggest thing. And also explore the areas of your weakness. Get to know yourself. I said earlier that you don't have to rely on the opinions of other people. But let me make an exception here that if people keep telling you the same thing, maybe people tell, as for you, you're stingy, or as for you, you are harsh. You're always speaking harsh, insulting words. Don't take it as truth. Sit down and examine yourself. You should know yourself. Get to know your strengths. Get to know your weaknesses. If you know that you are somebody who is an introvert, you know that your strength is not people, it's not um, opportunities that will make you be around people and make friends. You know that is not your strength. Your strength may be like things that will be behind the scenes. Accept yourself that me, I'm an introvert. I work better behind the scenes. Focus on your strength, play to your strengths. And if you know what your weaknesses are, try to manage your weaknesses so that they don't pull you down. And you can go for therapy. Your insurance helps with therapy. Book sessions with a therapist. Hey, I just need to have discussions about my self esteem. They'll go through with you what happened in your childhood, why you think the way you think. It's an interesting journey to take. Go to YouTube, listen to people who talk about self-esteem, self-worth. You will learn a thing or two that would help you build your self-esteem. And last but not the least, keep going. Don't give up. Sometimes your self-esteem will be, it's like every day is a new day. It's not like you deal with self-esteem issues once and that's it. You got to keep going. You got to keep engaging. You got to keep building. Every day is a new day. Practice what you learn and learn more as you go along. Once in a while, you may put it on the back burner, but you always have to come back to it. And don't forget that studying the Word of God is also a self esteem booster. But whatever you do, don't stop working on your self esteem and try to make sure that your children are developing with good self esteem. I hate that word tough love. I really don't know what it is, but sometimes people use it to um, condone being mean to children. I really don't know what it accomplishes. There's no reason to be mean to your children and call it tough love. You can always teach your children in a healthy way. You don't have to punish your children, discipline them. Because all this punishment, that is what will create monsters and low self esteem later on in life. And before I forget to mention, one good thing about being trained under harsh conditions when you're a child is that you become resilient and very adaptable. That's the only good thing about having a tough life. Like maybe you grew up as a house help, or you grew up being maltreated, or you grew up in very dire circumstances in a war zone. You become adaptable and resilient. You can face anything. That is the one positive thing about having an unhealthy childhood. But that doesn't mean you're healthy. That doesn't mean you're happy and peaceful. It only means that you are adaptable and resilient. And that's a quality that many people like. Everybody likes to be resilient and adaptable. If you can face any situation, it's a good thing. So that's the only good thing we can find with having harsh upbringing. And I don't know if it's worth it to have one positive and so many negatives. So we've said a lot. If you think you have self-esteem issues, investigate further, talk to a therapist, do what you need to do. And we've put out a few points you can follow up on that. Because being married to somebody with self-esteem issues, whether it's low self-esteem or somebody who is egotistic and thinks they're better than everybody, it's difficult to love a partner with self-esteem issues. And the self-esteem issues by themselves can even wreck your marriage. So time is fast spent, and this is where we'll bring down the curtain on today's discussion. And like always, let's remember that it takes a good Christian to have a good Christian marriage. So until we meet next week with another interesting topic, may God bless your marriage. Bye-bye.